Okay guys, Honda Elite 110. Today we're going to do the 600-mile service. First things first, in the owner's manual, towards the back, page 75, is where the maintenance schedule is listed. And for the 600-mile service, which is the first service that should be done on this guy, there's a couple things that need done. Very first, valve clearance, and that's going to be the most difficult and the most involved and possibly the first time that some of you guys are doing this, so we're going to go over that. Secondly, change the oil. Oil does not need to be changed every 600 miles, but for the first 600 miles it should, and that's listed in the owner's manual, so we don't need to go over that. Turning the page and going over this way, we need to inspect the brake system. We need to inspect the brake lock operation, and we need to inspect any miscellaneous nuts, bolts, and fasteners. That's a pretty broad one, and also the steering head bearings. So let's kind of nix this one right now, nuts, bolts, and fasteners. Basically what they're telling you to do is go over nuts, bolts, and fasteners, pretty much anything you see, because in the first 600 miles it's felt that anything that could have been mildly loose from the factory will be more loose at this point, so you want to check everything out. Let's talk about steering head bearings, but first we'll do the brake system and brake lock operation. Now there's really not a whole lot to do with the brake system. You have front brakes and rear brakes, obviously. You'll know if your front brake has been working or not, likewise with your back brake. But one of the more important things to do, probably the most important, is to check the level of brake fluid in your brake master cylinder. Now if let me see here, there we go. If we look through this little window, we see a sight glass, and in this sight glass you should be able to see the brake fluid. If you look very closely, you'll see a line on the side, you probably can't see it in the video, where it says lower. If the brake fluid is below that lower level, you have a problem. Otherwise, we see a little bubble at the top. That's good, that means we're full. Brake master cylinder should be checked totally level. However, on a lot of motorcycles, it's hard to get the brake master cylinder totally level because they're mounted on an angle on the handlebars, etc., etc. So you see where I'm going with that. But you can usually turn the handlebars so that the top, which you can see inside, of the brake master cylinder is as level as possible. This is something that is important because you're not going to know if there's a problem until it's too late, and then you can't stop. Let's see, as far as the brake lever check, well, that's this guy right here. I'm sure you know this by now, but if you squeeze in the rear brake and push up that lever, it locks both the front and the rear brakes, acts like a parking brake. When you squeeze the lever again, we see that the brake lock will move down. Okay, next thing, steering head bearings. Well, this is an easy one. What you're going to do, stand on top of the thing, and you just give it a little shake, some force up and down, and you make sure that you don't feel any play in this going back and forth. If you feel any play whatsoever, take it back to the dealer. It should be covered under warranty. That's about the only way to inspect steering head bearings. So you're good. You're not going to take it apart at this point. It only has 600 miles on it. Okay, so next thing is going to be valve clearance. Like I said, this one's more involved, but not too difficult. If we want to check the valve clearance, first we have to take off certain body panels in order to access the valve cover. So, to make this easy, I did most of it ahead of time. If we pull this back, your gas door flap, or whatever you'd like to call it, you'll see another piece of plastic right here. There is one screw that holds this piece of plastic in, and then you can take it out. This helps to give you access to the valve cover. Okay, second thing, we need to take off this plastic panel right here. Now there's two screws involved here. One here towards the front and another one behind the foot peg. Now when you take the one off behind the foot peg, it allows you to remove this little piece of plastic right here. we'll put that aside. And then you can shimmy this flat plastic piece, when I say flat I mean flat in color, forward carefully. And once you get it out, being very careful not to break anything, simply move it over the foot peg and you can put it aside as well. Okay, next. Moving up to the seat. We're going to open the seat, take a look inside, and the first thing we're going to do is we're going to remove the rear bracket. You have 1, 2, 3 screws back here. This one you're going to need an extension for. I put a little bit of tape over here just because the extension I had, the way the ratchet was sitting, was going to mar the surface, so I didn't want to scratch any of the paint. Just put a little masking tape there. Take that off, then you can remove the rear bracket. All right, next. Looking at the seat and the seat tub, we'll call it, you're going to have plastic covers on top of these 2 bolts. Pry them off and then unscrew the bolts. Also, remove the inner lining. Nope, check that. Don't remove the inner lining. Nothing else in there. But there are 2 screws right here. After that, we can take out the entire seat and seat tub. Okay. Now, this brings us to the engine. If we're looking up here, we see a lot of the fuel injection components. Towards the front, we see the valve cover. Okay. Now, valve cover has 4 bolts. 2 of them help to secure wires. This one right here. Take that bolt out. There's also one on the side, right where my finger is. Take this bolt out. It's going to make it easier for you. Then you have 1, 2 valve cover bolts. You're going to take these off, put them in a safe place. Personally, I prefer a magnetic parts dish. And then you should be able to remove the valve cover. Now, you don't have to take every single wire and hose off of here. Just enough to get it out of the way. Be careful, naturally. Oh, come on. There we go. Valve cover's out of the way. You can take the breather tube off if you want and remove the entire cover. Either way, it's out of the way. And then looking in here, we see the valve adjusters. I'm hoping this isn't too hard to see on the video, but basically you're looking at a nut and then you're looking at a square-headed bolt in the center. Okay? The adjustment procedure for this is the exact same as any other motorcycle that has a lock nut adjuster. So you see one here, and one's going to be on the other side, right here where my finger is. All right? These are what we're going to check and adjust. The last thing you need to take off is going to be the side cover where the flywheel is. And we are going to take off 1, 2, 3, 4, underneath 5, 6, 7. Don't forget about this one here, 8 bolts. And once all 8 of your bolts are out, you can remove the side cover, which will come off relatively easily. If it's not coming off somewhat easily, you got something wrong. One of those bolts are still in there. Gently rest the side cover on the ground. You do not need to replace this gasket. This gasket only keeps dust out, so it's not like replacing a gasket where it's keeping liquid inside. And then also this little metal piece, this cover for the starter gear, it's going to fall out. You might as well take it out yourself. Alright, so now we're looking at the flywheel right here. Here's our flywheel nut, and also we're looking at our Variator clutch assembly. This is the transmission part basically of the bike. So let's get a couple tools out and do it.